They tell you the education system is broken, that it needs fixing, that reforms will make it better. But what if I told you it's not broken at all? What if it's working exactly as it was designed to work, and the problem is that you were never told what it was actually designed to do? This is about the machine you were put through and why it feels the way it does. 12 to 13 years. That's how long most people spend in compulsory education. 12 years of the same pattern. Wake up, sit in rows, stay quiet, memorize, repeat what you were told, get tested on how well you repeated it. And at the end, they hand you a certificate and say, "You're ready for life now." But are you? Or were you just trained? Here's what they tell you education is for: learning, growth, developing your mind, preparing you for the future. And on the surface, that's what it looks like. But when you look at how the system actually functions, the structure, the incentives, the outcomes, a very different picture starts to emerge. A picture that has nothing to do with learning and everything to do with control. Let's start with the phrase you've heard your entire life: study is the path to success. And on the surface, this sounds reasonable. Education is valuable, knowledge is powerful. But notice what this phrase actually does. It doesn't say learning is the path to success, it says study, which means studying for exams, for marks, for degrees. And what does that produce? It produces job seekers, not builders. It produces people waiting to be hired, not people creating opportunity. It produces dependence on validation from institutions, degrees, certificates, job titles, instead of confidence in your own ability to create value. This isn't an accident. This is the design. The system needs workers, not entrepreneurs. Now let's talk about what you actually do in school. You sit through 8 compulsory subjects: mathematics, science, English, Urdu, Islamiyat, Pakistan studies, and 2 more depending on your board. 8 subjects, all mandatory, all tested, all weighted equally in determining your worth. But here's the question nobody asks. Why 8? Why these 8? If education were about developing your mind, you'd study what interests you, what you're naturally curious about, what matches your strengths. But the system doesn't care about your curiosity, it cares about standardization. Because curiosity is dangerous. Curiosity asks questions. Curiosity challenges systems. Obedience doesn't. And that's what 8 compulsory subjects train. Let me explain. When you force a student to study 8 different subjects, most of which they don't care about, you're not teaching them breadth. You're teaching them that their interests don't matter. You're teaching them that what they want to learn is irrelevant. You're teaching them that authority decides what's important and their job is to comply. This is obedience training. Now let's talk about how you're taught. You sit in a classroom, the teacher talks, you listen, you take notes, you memorize, you repeat it back on the exam. This is called the banking model of education. The teacher deposits information into your head, you store it, you withdraw it during the test, and then you forget it. This is not learning, this is performance. Real learning is when you encounter a problem, struggle with it, explore different approaches, fail a few times, and finally understand something deeply. Real learning is active, not passive, it's messy, not clean, it's driven by curiosity, not fear. But the education system can't afford real learning because real learning is slow, it's individualized, it's hard to standardize and test. So instead, the system optimizes for what it can measure: memorization and repetition, and it calls this education. But here's what it actually is: training you to follow instructions without questioning them, training you to prioritize external approval over internal understanding, training you to perform, not to think, and this is not a bug, this is the core function. Let's talk about notebooks. In Pakistani schools, you're graded on notebook maintenance, neat handwriting, clean margins, proper underlining. Teachers check your notebooks. If they're messy, you lose marks. If they're incomplete, you're punished. And students spend hours making their notebooks perfect, copying from the board, underlining in red and blue, making neat headings. Now ask yourself, what skill is this teaching? Is it teaching you discipline? No. Discipline is doing hard things that matter. Is it teaching you organization? No. Organization is structuring information in a way that makes sense to you. What it's actually teaching is aesthetic compliance. It's teaching you that how things look matters more than what they mean. It's teaching you to follow format without questioning why the format exists. It's teaching you that your job is to make authority figures happy by conforming to arbitrary rules. And this is crucial training for the workforce, because in most jobs you won't be rewarded for thinking differently. You'll be rewarded for following procedures, for not making waves. Now let's talk about exams. The entire system revolves around exams. Your worth is reduced to a number, your intelligence is measured by how well you performed in a 3-hour test. And this creates a very specific incentive structure. It doesn't reward deep understanding, it rewards efficient memorization. It doesn't reward original thinking, it rewards reproducing expected answers. So students don't ask, "Do I understand this?" They ask, "Will this come in the exam?" They don't study to learn, they study to score. And an entire industry has emerged to optimize this, the tuition system. Tuition academies don't teach subjects, they teach exam strategy, they teach shortcuts, they teach exactly what to memorize and how to write it to maximize marks. And here's the brilliant part, the system created this problem and then monetized the solution. Schools don't teach well enough, so students need tuition. Exams are designed to be difficult and unpredictable, so students need coaching. Syllabi are outdated and irrelevant, so students need crash courses. And families spend thousands every month just to survive the system. Now let's talk about what happens when you don't fit. When you want to be an artist, or a writer, or an entrepreneur, or a photographer, or a musician, the system has no path for you. There's no arts board exam, no startup studies subject, no certification for creative work. So you're told you're wasting your time, that you need a real education, a backup plan. And this reveals something crucial. The system doesn't recognize value that it didn't create. If you build a skill outside the system, coding, design, video editing, writing, it doesn't count. You're still seen as uneducated. But if you sit through 12 years and get a degree, even if you learned nothing useful, you're qualified. This is credentialism, and it's by design. Because the system's job isn't to develop your potential, its job is to certify you as safe to hire. Employers don't want thinkers, they want people who've proven they can sit still, follow instructions, and meet deadlines. And a degree is proof that you've done that for 12 years straight. It's a certificate of compliance, not a certificate of competence. Now let's talk about who benefits from this system. Not you, not your parents, not even most teachers. The system benefits institutions that need obedient workers. Factories need people who show up on time, follow instructions, and don't ask why. Corporations need people who accept hierarchy, perform repetitive tasks, and don't challenge management. Governments need people who comply. And that's what the education system produces. It doesn't produce innovators, it produces employees. It doesn't produce leaders, it produces followers. It doesn't produce people who question authority, it produces people who fear it. And this has been the design since the beginning. The modern education system was created during the Industrial Revolution to train factory workers. That's why it looks like a factory. Rows of desks, bells signaling when to start and stop, standardized products, graduates, quality control exams, and a conveyor belt structure grades 1 through 12. You weren't being educated, you were being processed. And the system has barely changed in 200 years because it's still doing exactly what it was built to do. So what does real education look like? Real education starts with curiosity, not curriculum. It's driven by questions you actually care about, not questions someone else decided you should answer. It values depth over breadth, mastery over coverage, understanding over memorization. It doesn't punish failure, it treats failure as part of the learning process. Real education doesn't measure you against others, it measures you against your past self. It doesn't force you into 8 compulsory subjects, it lets you go deep into what fascinates you. It doesn't train you to wait for instructions, it teaches you to think independently, act autonomously, and create value without needing permission. But the system can't provide this. Because real education produces people who don't need the system. And the system needs you to need it. It needs you to believe that without degrees, you're worthless. Without credentials, you're unqualified. Without institutional validation, you're nobody. Because the moment you stop believing that, the system loses its power over you, and that's the real threat. So here's what this means for you. If you're still in the system, understand what you're in. You're not in a learning institution, you're in a compliance training program. That doesn't mean drop out. That's your decision based on your circumstances. But it does mean stop letting the system define your worth. Stop believing that marks measure intelligence. They don't. Stop believing that the paths the system recognizes are the only paths worth taking. They're not. And stop waiting for the system to give you permission to learn, to create, to build, to become who you're capable of becoming, because the system will never give you that permission. Its job is to keep you obedient, not to set you free. So stop asking for permission and start building. The education system isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed. The question is, now that you know what it was designed to do, what are you going to do about it? That's up to you. Thanks for watching.